God of the universe spoke to me for the first time in my life. All he said was, do you want to play catch? It was the first time in my life that I realized he didn't want to take anything from me. He didn't want to make me do anything, just wanted to hang out. He just wanted to be my dad.
Hey guys, welcome back to At the Table with Jess. I'm super excited for this episode. We have Darren Wilson with us. You guys, I am sure, have seen his movies, Father of Lights, Furious Love. First one was Finger of God. Holy Ghost. I mean, most of charismatic Christianity has been impacted by these movies. And so I'm so excited for you guys to hear from Darren today. Darren, thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Also, we are essentially neighbors. We live in the same city now,
Yeah.
which I'm so excited about that.
Yes.
That's awesome. I feel like the Lord's doing some crazy stuff. Like more and more I'm hearing people moving to the Franklin / Nashville area. It's crazy, isn't it?
Everybody's coming here.
So many of my friends. We live right around the corner from my best friends, which I was like, I never thought we would end up living in the same city again. And it just keeps happening. It's crazy.
Cool.
So I'm glad you're here. So we're going to start. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this, because I remember actually, like, I can still remember where I was watching Finger of God and being a young woman in ministry, hungry to see God move, and just being so inspired by these films, and you just being raw and honest. It's something that I greatly appreciate about you. Like, you don't try to pretend like you're something you're not.
Right.
And so tell us about this. Like, how'd you get into this?
Okay, I'll give you the short version.
Give me the short version.
It's a long story. But
that's okay.
So basically, before I started doing movies, I was a college professor.
Okay.
I was an English professor.
Okay.
Had zero interest to make movies.
Wow.
I went to film school, but just for screenwriting. I was like, I'm never going to direct.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to, like, I'm writing all these screenplays, these books, nothing's happening. And but at the same time, while I'm kind of navigating the world of being a college professor, my faith very quickly left my heart and moved to my head. And so God, at a certain point, I say he became like wallpaper, because I grew up in the church.
Yeah.
And so I always knew God was real. But at the certain point, he just colored my vision, but there was no interaction at all anymore. And I'd go to church and I would check out immediately as soon as the sermon started and just start, like, working on ideas, because I'm like, this is so boring. Yeah. And I was just so bored with the church. I'm like, this is all it is. And so, but around that time, my family discovers this thing that's happening at this church in Toronto. I
think I've heard of
Toronto,
it.
the outpouring. Whatever. So they start going like every 3 months. They become conference junkies.
Now, is this your, like, extended family?
This is my
or
parents, my wife, like, everybody's going.
Okay.
My whole family's going.
Okay.
And they're coming back with stories, and I'm like, I don't believe a word of it.
Wow.
Like, there's no way. Limbs are growing out. People are being raised from the dead. That's not happening.
Yeah.
But they're like, it's real. But then they're all getting touched. And so the key thing that started everything was my aunt and uncle went there, and they both got gold teeth.
Wow.
And it wound up being, they went there because their marriage was dying. Okay. And they're like, God, you have to do something. Show up. We hear that you're here. So do something for us or we're getting divorced.
Wow.
And they walked in and they walked out with gold teeth. And it was the single event that led to the ultimate restoration of their marriage.
That's wild.
So that's why I'm like, when people say this stuff is of the devil, I'm like, I'm not sure the devil's into, like, restoring marriages.
Right.
But
did somebody pray for them, or they just literally?
It was just one of those things, like, 3,000 person conference. God's releasing gold teeth now.
Yeah,
and like,
and it just happened.
My uncle smelled something like a dentist drill at one point.
Wow.
And so they both got them, and that was one where I couldn't deny, because I'm like, okay, this is my family. Like, we're tight. My family's tight.
Yeah.
And they're not lying. And so I'm like, okay, well, what's going on here? So then, long story short, I get writer's block. I can't think of anything to work on for months and months and months. I'm getting irritable. My wife says, why don't you ask God for an idea? Because she's going to these conferences and apparently God talks to people. And so I was like, I didn't want to, but I was like, God, if you have an idea, I guess I'll take it. That was my prayer.
Yeah. And
within 5 minutes, he gave me the kernel of the idea for Finger of God.
Okay.
And so I knew it was from God, because there's no way I would make this movie.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't want to make a Christian movie. Like, it costs money. I've never made a movie in my life. I don't know what I'm doing. So I kind of put it on the shelf and said, I'll come back to this someday when I'm successful, and this will be my gift back to God, right?
Wow.
And so a few months go by. My wife comes to me again, says, I want you to go to a conference. I'm like, no way. She's like, it's in Toronto, double no way. She's like, it's a prophetic conference. I'm like, triple no way. That's the worst one. Because that's where all the crazies go.
Yeah, for sure.
And so she's like, listen, if you go to this one conference this one time, I'll never ask you to go to another one again. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's rip off the Band-Aid. So I go. It's charismania.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you ever were there back in the day.
No, not back in the day.
It was nuts. And I hated every minute of
Yeah.
it. I'm just like all the shaking, the hoo-ahs and the laughing and all the roaring. And I'm like, this is so stupid, you know?
Yeah.
But every night they would do like ministry time.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I'll go get my fortune told. That's how I viewed the prophetic.
Let me go get a prophetic word.
Yeah. I'm like, so tell me my fortune. What's going to happen? And so 3 nights in a row, 2 different people each night. So 6 people prayed for me, and they all prayed the exact same prayer.
Wow.
It was some iteration of there's something on the shelf. It's gathering dust, and God wants you to take it down and run with it. And then they all ended it with, and you know what I'm talking about.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm still not enough. You know?
Yeah.
I was an evangelical. I need a little bit more confirmation.
Pause. You're getting these words. Do you know, it's that idea?
I know it's that.
Okay.
If there's nothing else it could be.
Yeah.
And so last night at the conference, one of the speakers is Bob Jones.
Yeah.
Who I thought was the strangest dude ever.
Right.
But he gets up in the middle of worship and he stops everything and he says, I just want you all to know that an angel has entered the building and his name is Breakthrough. And he's come here from Nigeria where he's been for the last 10 years. And he's brought a whole bunch of his angel buddies with him. And they're here looking for people whose hearts are turned to the Lord. So we're just going to keep on praising Jesus and let Breakthrough do whatever he won't do. Thank you very much. Click, and he walks off the stage.
Oh my gosh.
Place, you've been a character. I mean,
for sure.
These conferences, the place erupts. It's
like, they're like, that's
chance,
what
chance
totally.
of breakthrough. It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is why I hate this place.
Right.
Like, do we not vet these prophets?
You know, just let anybody take a microphone.
How does he know all this stuff? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, screw this. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was just like, I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
And so I go to the back and I'm like, I'm just be by myself and I'm gonna worship the Lord the way I know he wants to be worshipped, which is calmly and normally. And so I have my eyes closed. I'm trying to worship, and then I'm far away from everybody. And somebody walks right past me, like really close. And now I'm annoyed.
Yeah.
And so I open my eyes, and there's nobody within 30 feet of me. And so I close my eyes, and that's the moment where I became one of the crazy people at the conference.
Come on.
Because there is this thing standing in front of me, and he's right here. He's this close. And it's an outline of a man. I can only see him with my eyes closed. I open my eyes, there's nothing there. I close them. I see this outline. It's about 2 inches taller than me. His hands are clenched at his side, and he's vibrating with energy. Like just the most intense thing I've ever felt.
Yeah.
It was one thing just to kind of see the outline, but to feel something, because I've never felt anything in church.
Yeah.
And it was so intense. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't know what this is, but it wants to break through a wall. And as soon as I thought that, I remembered what Bob Jones said. And I knew, like I've known anything in my life, that the angel breakthrough was standing in front of me. Now, at this point, I don't know what to do. I don't know angel etiquette. I don't know who speaks first in this relationship. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm just freaked out.
Yeah.
And so he asked me 3 times, are you ready? And I said, 3 times I said yes. The last time I saw his hands go up, and I realized he's grabbing my head. And he screamed in my face, are you ready? And I said out loud, yes, ready for what? And he just sat there for about 5 seconds, and then he said, make that movie.
Wow.
And then he moves away. And so I'm freaking out. And I remember I just had the thought, wait, don't go. Boom, he's back in front of me. But this time the presence was the most loving, like, I can't even describe it. I remember, but when the intensity, I was like, my back was hitting the wall. With this, I wanted to fold myself into it. It was just so loving and tender.
Yeah.
And he said, he whispered, but it was louder than when he yelled at me. He said, what do you want? What do you need? I'll be with you. I'll stay with you all night if you need me to. And, you know, I didn't realize at the time, I didn't know how this stuff works. But since then, I've kind of realized, and people have told me he was probably, at that point, he's assigning himself to me.
Yeah.
Which is why these movies carry kind of the spirit of breakthrough on them.
Right, yeah.
It just breaks through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I don't need anything. This is just so cool. And so, you know, a couple minutes and we're not saying anything anymore. So I'm like, oh, I guess you can go. So that happens. I'm freaking out. So I go up to the balcony. I'm like, I think I'm losing my mind. I'm a college professor.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't happen to people
And
like
not
me.
crazy charismatic at this moment, right? I mean,
I'm bored with church.
Right.
And so I go up there and I sat down on the floor and I said, God, what are you doing to me? What is happening? And one and only time in my life, vision comes up like a movie screen. And, what people never knew, nobody knew, was growing up, my dad was my best friend. And the best memory of childhood was when he would play catch with me with the baseball. He was an artist. He had a little thing in the garage where he'd make all of his pottery. And so I'd always go out there. I'm 8 years old. I'm like, Dad, can we play catch? And he made a vow that he would never say no to me. I'm just going to let you know I'm going to cry telling this story. I always do.
Go for it.
This is
Yeah.
it's because
You're
it just
okay.
means so much.
Yeah.
So that you have to understand, I'm scared to death of God.
Yeah.
For 10 years, I've been scared to death of him because I don't want him to get close.
Yeah.
Because I did read the Bible and I saw what he did to his friends. I saw how he treated them, what he made them do. And I'm like, I don't want that. So
Wow.
I would call it, try to find the sweet spot of Christianity where it's like you're doing just enough that you don't feel like a spiritual loser.
Fire insurance.
Yeah, exactly. But then like you keep God as far enough away that he doesn't get dangerous.
Wow.
So that's kind of how I lived my life. It was tension and it was awful.
Okay. Can we pause?
Yeah.
I do itinerant ministry, right? Travel around the world, preach the gospel. See that. I would say the majority of Christians, whether they are consciously making that decision or not, they're playing in that safe zone
100%.
of like, I want enough of Jesus to know I'm not going to hell, but not enough that it makes me get outside of my comfort zone. Not enough that he sends me to China to be a missionary.
Yep.
Not
For me, it was
enough,
Africa.
Exactly. Right. I want to follow this, but I want to hear the end of the story.
Yeah.
So
We're almost
keep
done.
telling the
We're
story and we'll
almost
go
done.
there. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where I was.
Yeah.
Vision comes up. It's a father and a son. It's a father and me in a field of wheat with baseball gloves. And God of the universe spoke to me for the first time in my life. And all he said was, do you want to play catch?
He's the best.
And he threw me the ball. Jessica, I was a puddle of tears for 15 minutes because it was the first time in my life that I realized he didn't want to take anything from me. He didn't want to make me do anything. He just wanted to hang out. He just wanted to be my dad.
You're going to make me cry, Darren.
I cry every time. I remember, and it's so clear. It's 20 some years ago and it's like still as clear as day.
Yeah.
But so then it ended and I heard him say, get up. And so I got up. He said, walk to the edge of the balcony. So I go there. And he says, look at them. And I looked over, and it's like he put new glasses on my eyes. And every person I looked at saw hurt, fear, doubt, abuse, just all the junk, even in the midst of their like charismatic movements and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just realized they're all broken.
Yeah.
Like we're all broken.
Yeah.
And God, the last thing he said, will you make it for them? Will you make it to show my people how much I love them? Now you have to understand the idea that he actually gave me. The idea was a short film about weird stuff that Christians believe.
Yeah.
That was what he popped into my head.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that would have had me moving forward because I'm like, I can do that.
Yeah.
Because like, I think these people are all weird anyway.
Right.
And I think it could be entertaining.
Yeah.
And I remember I said to him, I said, God, I don't know how a short film about weird stuff that people believe is going to show anybody that you love them. But at this point, I'm yours. I'll do whatever you want me to do. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in front of a man I had barely heard of named Bill Johnson for my very first interview.
Yeah.
I had to borrow camera equipment from my university where I worked and had to teach myself how to film and sound and everything while I was doing it. So
Wow.
that's how it all started.
So you've never made a film.
No.
You're not immersed into charismatic Christianity.
No, and I hated documentaries too.
How do you even get these guys? Like, so some of my friends have been in your movies,
Yeah.
right? And why do you think they say yes?
Well, I know why now.
Yeah.
But back then, that was always the big question.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm a nobody. And, honestly, there's two key things that happened. One was Bill being the first person
Sure.
Because I didn't realize
They all
he
respect Bill.
was like the Godfather.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so when I would say, hey, I want to do an interview, I've already interviewed Bill Johnson. They were like, oh, well, if Bill trusts this kid, then I guess I can too.
Yeah.
The other person was Shara at the time. Her name was Shara Pradden.
Yeah.
She was Heidi Baker's personal assistant. Yeah. And so once I met her, because Heidi was a tough cookie to get.
Sure.
Because she said no to everybody.
Right.
And so I asked her. I just sent a blind email to contact at Iris. And months went by, and finally, out of the blue, I get an email saying you can come. You can come and film. And so I was there, and I asked her, I'm like, why did you take so long? She's like, well, I was praying. Because at first
the most Heidi answer possible.
Right. Yeah. So she was like, well, at first I was just going to say no, but I just felt the Lord say, hold on.
Wow.
And then at a certain point, she said, the Lord said, let him in. I'm with this one. Let him come.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, that's pretty cool. But then, so that's when I met Shara, and she just like opened almost every door possible for me. I mean, she should have been probably an executive producer. Yeah. But yeah, so it was kind of just like, just once you can name drop, once you get a few people,
sure,
you can kind of
more people are. There's credibility.
Yeah. And then, so once it was released and became a big hit, then it was a lot easier.
You kept going. Why did you keep making films?
Because God kept telling me to. I always tell people I'm a hobbit.
Okay.
So I love being home. People freak me out a little bit. But like every once in a while, Gandalf shows up at my door and says, it's time to go on an adventure. And so
that joke is not going to play well over the years.
But no, it's literally, it's true. Like I only do what he tells me to do. And so with Furious Love, Heidi prophesied it. Wow. So I hadn't even finished Finger of God.
I didn't know that.
The end of filming Finger of God, and I was terrified because I had 100 hours of footage, which is comical now, but back then it was a lot.
Yeah.
100 hours of footage, and I'm like, I have no story. I have no idea what I'm going to do about how to put this movie together, and who's going to watch it? I remember telling my mom, she's like, what would you be happy with? I'm like, I'd be thinking successful if 1,000 people watch this movie.
Wow.
Like, that'd be amazing. Because I'm nobody. And so, it was the last night of filming. We were in Turkey, I believe. And so she's praying over me, and she's just, the normal blessing, blah, blah, blah. And then she stops and she goes, oh my, oh goodness. And I'm like, what's going on, right? She's like, I don't know how to tell you what I'm seeing, so I'm just going to tell you what I see. She's like, I see you filming the demonic. I see you filming like Satanists, and I'm like, what the heck? And she said, and then it, something clicked, and she says, you need to go into the darkness to show the light.
Wow.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I have to finish this first movie, but if I ever do a sequel, I guess I know what it's going to be about. So that kind of started that.
Wow.
And then after you have 2 successful films, then it was just like, Lord, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And he just always kept showing me. Again, I could get into all the details, but long story short, he just always tells me what to do.
Do you have a favorite?
The God Man. Just because, I don't know if you've seen it, but my daughter's story, it's the most important.
Yeah.
It always used to be Father of Lights.
Yeah.
Because that's where I became friends with God. But no, the God Man will always and forever be my favorite.
Favorite moment of all of your filming, and then I have another question.
Dome of the Rock. Getting into the Dome of the Rock at the end of Father of Lights.
Okay.
Without question.
Wow. Why?
It was just so impossible. I mean, it was absolutely, utterly impossible to do. But it was the first time. I remember 2 days before I left to go film in Israel. It was the ending of the last shoot we were going to do for Father of Lights. And I knew I'd filmed a lot of good stuff, but I knew I didn't have an ending. And so I'm like, God, we have to film the ending here. And I don't know what it's going to be. But I remember I sat in my office 2 days before I left, and I said, God, search my heart. Understand why I'm asking this. Will you allow me to film something that is totally impossible? That no one will ever be able to say that I made it up, that I finagled it, that I planned it ahead of time, anything like that. It's absolutely impossible. And I thought in my spirit, what I was asking for is I want to raise somebody from the dead. But so we got there, and I was hanging out with a guy who was kind of hosting us named Gary, and I was fiddling through a photo's guidebook because we were heading to Jerusalem the next day. We only had 2 days.
Yeah.
And I saw the Dome of the Rock, and it said second holiest site in Islam, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Gary, what's this? And so he tells me about it. I'm like, well, let's go in there. That's where I want to go. And he laughed in me and Todd's face. Laughed at us. He's like, that's completely impossible. And it was funny because, Todd's on the couch, I'm on a chair, and he knew what I had prayed. And so as soon as he said it's totally impossible, we both looked at each other, and I told Gary, I'm like, well, that's where we're going to go. And he's like, good luck, boys. It's impossible. But so that was and so when God, you have to watch the movie to see how it all happened. But the reason it's my favorite is because that's the first time in my life where my belief that God would answer my prayer finally outweighed my doubt that he wouldn't.
Wow.
And it was because I had come to fully trust him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I had also gone through essentially 3 films doing what he asked me to do. And I knew that he trusted me now.
Wow.
And for me, my whole thing is friendship with God. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of life.
Yeah.
And I think we get confused sometimes. We think it's only about how much we trust him. But there's with friendship, it's a give and take.
Yeah.
Like, he needs to be able to trust me.
Yeah.
That when he asks me to do something, I'll do it. It's the parable of the talents. It's biblical.
Right.
And so, that's why, I made Finger of God for $20,000.
Yeah.
That's by
crazy.
myself.
That's wild.
And so he gives me this little tiny kernel.
Right.
You know what I mean? And a little fun story. I know I wasn't God's first choice to make Finger of God. I know for a fact.
How come?
Because after it was released, I got about at least 15 emails from people telling me, God told me to make this movie about miracles that travel the world. They were like professional photographers, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, either, money, or I was scared, or I was just, whatever, I'll get to it someday. And then I looked up, they're like, Darren, you made the movie God asked me to make. But it wasn't like accusation. It was like, bravo. You know what I mean? And so I know for a fact that I was at least God's 16th choice to make it. It's like, well,
I got 15 emails.
Well, there's Wilson over here. He doesn't look like much, but maybe we can give him a shot.
Wow.
So he threw me this little tiny thing, and I was faithful, and it bared good fruit, and made another one bear good fruit. And so, I think it just got to a point where, okay, we can trust each other, for bigger things.
Yeah.
And so that's why that's always going to be my favorite.
I love that. When we disciple girls, we have this phrase that I say a lot, and that's, we don't lay in bed at night asking if God is trustworthy. He is, right? And you might spend a life trying to figure that out, but at the end of the day, he is. Whether you believe he is or not, he is. But I do lay in bed at night going, was I trustworthy? Am I being a trustworthy friend for him?
Yeah.
And so I love that. Okay, most people, I think, at least my experience has been, we start talking about these movies and they're like, all right, you're the miracle guy. You're the supernatural guy. You're the healing guy.
Yeah.
And we were kind of chatting before we were doing this. And you were saying, to some degree, you're like, I'm still a skeptic. I'm still exploring this. And so you have a new project. Tell us a little bit about that. And let's talk about some of these tensions that you're dealing with, because I kind of want to grind into those. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay, you're talking about the Journey Through the Miraculous?
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've got this new thing that I've just launched. It's called the Journey Through the Miraculous.
Yeah.
And it's where I go to different churches or conferences or whatever, and it's a 90-minute, essentially, presentation.
So if you're a pastor watching this, they can actually call you and have you come do this at their church, right?
Go to the wpfilm.com website. It's Invite Darren. It's all that. You can watch the whole thing if you want.
Okay, great.
See what you're getting into.
Awesome. Keep going.
But yeah, so it's 90 minutes long, and basically it's about 25% of me talking and 75% videos.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily videos from the films.
Okay.
It's basically, because the whole point of it is to walk people through my journey through this kind of world of miracles for the past 20 years as a skeptic.
Yeah.
And so it's you start off with things that I saw that are undeniable, like my aunt and uncle's gold teeth.
Right.
Then we move into, but the big questions that I've had, and I'm not hearing the charismatic world talking about very much.
Yeah.
Why is one person healed and another person isn't?
Yeah.
Why is, same circumstances, a baby is cured, another baby isn't?
Right.
Why does it feel like if you get a miracle, you're winning the lottery? Just all kinds of different things, right?
Yeah.
And so we wrestle through a lot of that, heavy stuff, but a lot of it's just being done through the people that have filmed and video and stuff. But then we get to the end. At the end of the day, we get to the point where it's the answer doesn't really matter.
Right.
The answer is do you trust God?
Yeah.
And so it's been really exciting I just did it out at Bethel, which is super fun, and people just are really responding to it, because I'm realizing there's a silent majority of believers, especially charismatics, who they just. Sometimes the charismatic world doesn't leave space for doubt and for questions, because it's all about the more. Let's keep going. Let's go after it more.
Yeah.
We need revival. I think it was, who was it? Will Hart. I think he said that, I don't think revival has ever happened in a revival meeting. It's always spontaneous, but we always we do conferences. We're going to bring revival down from heaven. It's not if God doesn't want it right now. And so there's just this culture that I feel doesn't service people like me, who are critical thinkers, who are skeptical, who really want answers.
Yeah.
I was just filming Bill for my other project, Nightlight. And, we're talking about the death of his wife and how he found joy through grief.
Right.
And, I just come off, 2 days earlier doing the journey through the miraculous there, where my whole thing is why.
Yeah.
Why does this happen? Why doesn't this happen? So the first question I asked Bill is like, what was it like when she died? Did you ask God why? He's like, no, I never asked God why. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Of course you didn't, Bill.
Yeah, he's like, I only asked, what do I do? That was his answer.
Wow.
He's like, it's not my place to ask him why. I don't work for him. No, he doesn't work for me.
He doesn't work for me.
I work for
Right.
him. And I'm like, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
But I can't be like, that's just not.
You're not wired that way.
I'm not wired
You're
that way.
not wired that way. Yeah.
Maybe I will be someday. Maybe I'll grow into,
Yeah.
be as good of a Christian
Bill
as
is almost other human though,
He's
too.
not-
I mean,
he's
that's,
not real.
yeah.
He's not real. But yeah, so like, for me, I just realized there's a lot of people out there who have the same questions that I do that
Yeah.
are not being serviced.
No, I think I hear these questions more often than not. Of course, have battled them myself, like my own story. I went through PTSD after being on the mission field, and you go through all these things, like not getting healed, not seeing the miracle, and seeing other people get the miracle. Like actually, I tell this story, and it always makes me laugh. Like the first time I moved, I went out to Reading to move there after coming off the mission field, battling PTSD. I was not doing well. I was suffering. And I'm in this environment where everybody's like, woo, miracles.
Right.
And I'm like, I have had more jugs of oil dumped on my head than anybody else. I've had more shakarabas and everybody who's who pray over me and lay hands on me. And I'm not getting any better. And then some guy gets his knee healed or somebody gets up out of a wheelchair. And I'm like, what the heck? Like they'll be fine in their wheelchair. I'm dying over here with PTSD, and it creates this tension. Like it creates this, why God? Like what's going on? Why them and not me? Or, why that person and not that person? And so you're pushing into, I would say like a dangerous charismatic area there. And I kind of love it.
I've never not been controversial. So.
I love that though, because I think my experience has been this. Most people have those questions, whether they're willing to admit it or not.
Yeah.
And it is the minority to go that 100% of the time, I just feel confident and I'm good with what I believe. And I don't have questions about why certain things happen. So tell me a little bit about doing this journey for you and what that's been like. I mean, has it had an impact on you? What are you experiencing?
Well, I built this thing out of what I had experienced.
Yeah.
And the conclusions that I had already come to. So this is a 20-year wrestling match.
Wow.
And I've always been comfortable wrestling with God. I mean, Israel literally means wrestle, one who wrestles with God.
Yeah.
David wrestled with God more than anybody. He's a man after God's own heart.
Yeah.
But then, I also, I discovered, I see these things in the Bible like, what was it? What's the Bible? What's the story? Where the angel was sent to the prophet.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I can't remember. It's not totally like brain.
Are you talking about the warfare, or which one are you talking about?
Yeah, the Prince of Persia.
Daniel.
That's it.
Yeah. No, you're good.
So you have so Daniel prays to God.
Yeah.
Need help.
Yeah.
And takes 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Angel finally shows up. He says, I heard your prayer. God heard your prayer. I was dispatched immediately, but I kind of got held up by a Prince of Persia for 3 weeks, right?
Right.
But I'm here now. Let's roll. And you read that and you realize, okay, there's a lot going on.
We're not
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That's like, if Daniel, the prophet of God, has to wait 3 weeks because there's this battle going on. Imagine all the different things that are happening in and around our lives.
Yeah.
And, we're waiting for our breakthrough, but it's not happening. Well, it's, people want to say we want to make things so simple. It's like you're either don't have enough faith or you're in sin.
Right.
And it's like, or it could be a million other things.
Right.
Even
what I mean? Biblically, we see that. Right. Yeah.
So, so it's just been stuff like that, just kind of all compiled together that, and it was just really fun to be able to compress it into like a 90-minute
so cool
thing. And it goes by really fast.
What's your hope that people are going to get from that? Or that God's going to do, or, however you want to phrase it.
I want people to feel, one, that they're okay to have these thoughts and to have these doubts and questions. But at the same time, to live there is dangerous.
That's good.
And it's not like, that's not what God wants.
Yeah.
You don't have to just blindly be like, I don't care or whatever, I still have tension.
Yeah.
But again, at the end of the day, like, is God who he says he is? It's like my circumstances don't define who God is.
Yeah.
They're just my circumstances.
Yeah.
God's goodness shines through in everything that I go through. You know what I mean? The good, the bad, and the ugly. He'll turn something horrible to good.
Yeah.
Again, I hate I'm just stealing all of Bill's thunder, but one of the other thing that he said when I was just filming with him, he's like, he views it as like a chef. Like, sometimes there's certain ingredients that by themselves are disgusting in a dish. But if a master chef can take all of these things, put them together into something that's absolutely exquisite and wonderful. But you're taking something, to do that, you have to have this one thing that you maybe don't like. But if it's added to this total dish,
It makes it. Wow.
So I thought that was good.
He's, just a side note on the Bill. Like, I always say, I quote the Bible and Jesus first, and then Bill is a very close second of the amount of things. But he said, like Michael Jordan in the playoffs with the flu, like, Bill comes out after Benny's passed away and preaches, to me, one of the greatest sermons I've ever heard on grief, and echoes something that he had taught for a long time. But this reality that, and it's set me free in so many ways. And I meet people everywhere that would say the same thing, but I can offer God an offering of worship in my pain, in my disappointment, in my confusion or not understanding, that I'll never be able to offer him again in heaven. And I remember hearing him say that, and it brought purpose to pain. It brought this, the ability to kind of see the James 1, count it all joy when you fall under various trials, like to go, okay, I have this very short time in life to offer God worship when I don't understand, or when the spouse dies, the baby dies, the miracle doesn't happen. And I have this moment to either partner with offense, partner with all of these other negative emotions, or worship and create a fragrant offering to him that I won't get to do that in heaven. And man, when you can shift that perspective, it changes how we walk through the hard things in life. It doesn't get rid of them.
No, not at all.
But it changes how we walk through them.
Yeah.
Man, so, okay, tell us, so you've done this. How many times have you done this in churches now? Because I know you've done this at Bethel about 5 times.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to keep doing these?
I would love to keep doing them.
Okay.
The response that I'm getting is just, it's so fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I would love to do
What
that
are most
more.
people responding? What are you seeing?
Just a lot of thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny. I did it in one church in Pennsylvania, and it was like dead silent the whole time. And I'm like when I speak, I'm like jokey and all this. And none of my jokes are landing. It's just deadpan stares at me, and I'm like, this is terrible.
This is not going well.
No. And so, but then I'm out, and I'm kind of like meeting people and signing stuff, and I'm just seeing all of these people walking out, just still crying. Just because it's just, you can never tell. But I've just seen that a lot of people, just that it's hitting something deep inside of them. Yeah. And I'm assuming that the people who it's really hitting are the people who are struggling with it the most.
Yeah.
So that's been super fun.
Yeah.
To kind of like speak to my tribe, so to speak.
I really do, like, just to encourage, like, I think you're hitting a vein of people that have been maybe ostracized and pushed to the side. The ones who do ask questions, the ones who go, I actually don't know where to file this in my box, and I'm trying to trust God in spite of, as opposed to that. And so you've made this comment multiple times, but you said, like, the thing that you've figured out is that it's more about the journey and the friendship with God than anything else.
Yes.
Where did you find that in this journey? Because when did you first make Finger of God?
It was released very early 2008.
Okay, so you're almost at 2 decades of this journey. Where in this did you find, like, oh, this is more about relationship than it is?
At the Dome of the Rock.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, because I'd been going through it, like, Finger of God, I was like, I start off, I'm not sure, but I'm going to suspend my disbelief. By the end, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure he's still doing miracles.
Yeah. That's funny.
Furious Love.
Maybe.
Furious Love started off, love didn't mean anything. God loves you didn't mean anything anymore. And we'd be in the streets filming, and I'd hear ministers say something just to somebody that, God, hey, God loves you. And they'd burst into tears. I'm like, what are you crying for? Like, this is like the most basic truth. Everybody knows God loves you.
Right.
But it didn't mean anything to me because I grew up for 30 years hearing it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I have to find out. I have to get back to like what that love actually looks like. And so to do that, that's why he told me go into the darkness.
Right.
And I'll show you. I'll show you my light. I'll show go to the worst dregs of society. The guys who are raping babies and kids in Thailand.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you that I love them. That this is my love. It's furious.
Wow.
And so that so I'm getting softened through these whole processes. You're watching a 90-minute movie. It's 9 months for me.
Right.
In the pressure.
Yeah.
And so then Father of Lights was really kind of the breaking point where I started. Once I unlocked the truth about the Father, because he was the big blockade for me.
Why is that? Because you had a great relationship with your dad.
Yeah, but I read the Bible. And so
Talk about that. Say some. Is it okay? Are you comfortable? Okay. Like you read the Bible.
Yeah.
Where did the block come from?
I saw how he treated people. I saw he's like, it was like, well, especially we're talking Old Testament.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, it was just so much the wrath of God, so much black and white, my way or the highway, like you screwed up. Now I'm going to put you in the chains for 400 years.
Right.
It's just over and over. Abraham's probably the biggest one. Abraham's story. I think it's the most twisted story in the Bible.
Yeah.
You got God tells a guy who's been waiting for a son for 100 years. Okay, now it's time to kill him.
It's brutal.
Prove to me that you love me by killing the promised one. Right.
Yeah.
And when we read the story, it doesn't hit hard because we know the ending.
We know the ending, right?
And God's not, he didn't really mean it,
right?
But there was one guy in the story who did not know that God didn't really mean it,
right?
And it's Abraham. And so for 3 days he has to go on this death walk with his son, knowing that he's going to have to kill him. And when he last second obviously doesn't. But it was interesting that's the Abraham is kind of the building block essentially of Judeo-Christian. Sure. Jesus is the building block,
right?
But,
but
Abraham. I'm the
father Abraham.
Abraham's
right.
the first one, right? God, he so impressed God by his trust.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it that way. I just saw it as God just being worship me or else.
Yeah.
And so I Jesus and me were always cool because you don't die for somebody that you don't
right.
love.
Right.
But I always viewed it more like it was God always wanted to pound me. And but Jesus was the one there being my big brother, but hey, don't forget what I did for him.
Right.
You can't touch him.
N.T. Wright has an incredible quote about that, where he says, if we translated John 3:16 the way most Christians believe it to be, it would say, for God so hated the world that he gave his only begotten son. And I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think that's been the perspective that a lot of people have, and even have heard from the pulpit, that is God hates you. Thank God Jesus loves you, because otherwise you're screwed, right? Okay, so you're on this journey. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And you feel this way. You're doing this movie, and
so and most of the movies that I've done have come out of my own questions. And I knew for a fact.
That's what I love about you, though, Darren. It came out of your questions, not what you knew, and I think that's why it's had the impact it's had.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going though.
But yeah, so I knew going into Father of Lights that I had it wrong about the Father.
Yeah.
Just because I'd heard enough teaching and I've been with enough people, but it still hadn't hit my heart. You know what I mean? And so I had to go on a journey and figure out who he was. Mm-hmm. And so again, by the end of it, it was I start out, who are you? And I end with, you're my actual friend. Mm-hmm. And so, it's just, there's just, again, making these movies, there's a softening. And you can see it if you watch my last movie, God-Man, of my daughter, who was gone completely prodigal.
Yeah.
I hire her just a last-ditch effort. Hopefully she'll see God move a little bit and get softened back to the Lord.
Yeah.
And it just gradually, every shoot, that movie was actually put together chronologically. It's the exact way that we shot it, which is unusual.
Yeah.
But by the end of it, she's become so radical a lover of Jesus that the biggest miracle in the film is the last one that we filmed, and it was because of her.
Right. That was a moving film. It was a really good one. I mean, all of them arguably are moving, but
Thank you.
You've gone through a lot of persecution because of the, where are we at on time? I'm supposed to be paying attention.
I'm having fun. This is good.
Can I ask you another question? Do you have time?
You guys made like a whole day.
Okay. You've gone through a lot of persecution making these films.
I mean, online persecution isn't, I don't really.
I mean, people could Google you.
They can Google me. I just don't Google myself.
They could wisdom. They could make assumptions. So you had said this thing, and I actually love it. Like it doesn't really get under your skin too much.
No. So okay, I didn't tell you this. So there's two moments. I'll tell you the one that I told you, and then the second moment, which was probably more impactful. But we had the big premiere of Holy Ghost out at Reading Civic Center. I'd sold it out twice. Over 1 million people watching online live. It was the biggest event of my life. And I'm on stage, and it's standing ovation for a minute. It's just all this adulation, and I felt nothing. It was just, there was nothing there. And it profoundly affected me, where I realized, like, this is not, like, I am not what I do. Yeah. Because there's nothing in this. Yeah. It's so nice when people come up and say, like, your movie's changed my life. I'm like, it really, really makes me feel good.
Yeah, of course.
But it doesn't feed my ego, because I don't really have one anymore with this stuff. I just do my job.
Yeah.
The other thing that happened specifically to this was when Holy Ghost came out. That one got a lot, because it was so big.
Right.
It got so much pushback.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember there's a few people who did like 3-hour episodes on YouTube breaking down minute by minute of the film, why all of it is garbage and all of it is lies and all of it is, and I'm just seeing all these things coming against me. And that was the most like vicious ones. And it did start to get to me. And because I was like, I've always said it's easy to be called a liar when you know you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Like, that's why a lot of this stuff just goes off my back.
Right.
But when it just compounds and compounds, and it's just everybody's coming, and they're literally personally attacking you, like, not just what you create, but like Darren Wilson is the devil. The devil was working through him.
Yeah.
It definitely hurt, and I was starting to get angry.
Yeah. And
I remember I went to take a shower, and God, he always gets me when I'm taking a shower. I think something about being naked. He just, but I remember I was taking a shower, and I had read something that I shouldn't have read, and I was just so angry, and I'm like, oh God, I'm so just, get him,
Yeah.
And I heard him so clearly say, "What did I tell you to do?" And I'm like, checkmate. I'm like, you told me to forgive and to love my enemy. And so it was that moment. I specifically prayed for this couple that, or at least, I don't know if it was two guys or whatever, that had really been going after me. Yeah. I said, bless their ministry. Like, just, I forgive them. And that literally broke everything. Yeah. At that point, it's like, I can't hold on to this stuff.
Right.
So now I could care less.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. Say whatever you want to say.
Yeah. I just think you're hitting on like two really important things for culture today, because we meet so many young people within Christian contexts that are like, the ideal thing is to become the top of my whatever, filmmaker, preacher, YouTuber, podcast, whatever, whatever it is. I want to be the best. I want to be the best. And you're, arguably like you were that for a season. I mean, people weren't doing what you were doing when you started doing Finger of God. Like there's tons of people doing that kind of stuff now, but they weren't then.
Right.
And so you kind of came into this top echelon of the field of Christian documentary filmmaking, or even just Christian filmmaking in that season. And you're like, it still didn't provide the feeling of value that people, I think, assume that getting there will make it feel,
It will not. I guarantee you it will not. Unless you have a friendship with God, you're not going to be satisfied.
Yeah.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
I mean, Ecclesiastes just sums it up pretty good. There's just nothing there.
Just
it's
vain.
like, So it's go for it. I mean, but go for it. Understanding that, but also go at it with a purity of heart that I'm doing this not to get there. Yeah. I'm doing this for you, Lord. Yeah. You know what I mean? And and you can't fake it.
Yeah.
Before I'd start filming, I'd always would pray, like, search my heart. Like, know why I want to do this. You know what I mean? And sometimes he called me on it. Sometimes you start to get a little big for your britches. You start to treat people not great. You know what I mean? Like, you start to be shorter with people because like, hey, I'm the guy in charge, just listen to me. You know, there's stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
But really at the end of the day, I think what God's looking at is like, what's your motivation for
Yeah.
what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
you know? And it matters.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's part of the trust too. Can I trust you that this isn't going to ultimately become about you? And I think that's what you see a lot of times with, you know, these ministers who are just making really stupid decisions or stuff's being brought to light. It's like,
Yeah.
what was your motivation, man? You know what I mean?
We're dealing with this now in the body of Christ, right? Lots of exposure. I don't want to get too opinionated about it, but like some of it, like I think it's Peter who says, like, if you're going to be persecuted, let it be for doing good.
Yeah.
You know? And I would say some of the persecution occurring in the body of Christ is because we've been idiots, right? Like, no, like fair, you know?
Yeah.
You have had a lot of accusations against you, like, and against your movies. Do you regret any of the stuff that you've put in the movies? Like, is there any of it that you're like, if I would go back, I would take this out?
No, never. No. So I get this question quite a bit.
Do you?
Yeah. It's asking because so many people that have been in the films have like made stupid decisions. And,
True.
you know.
Yes.
And so like, okay, so does that negate the film?
Right.
Which I've always thought is absurd.
Yeah.
To me, the films are a time capsule. It like all I can tell you is that at the time that we filmed with anybody that I filmed with, to the best of my knowledge and to as well as I could discern, they were super solid.
Yeah.
They were just Jesus on fire,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the most classic example is Jason Westerfield.
Right.
You know, he was 3 months into his ministry. I mean, he was
Yeah.
just Jesus everything.
Yeah.
And then, you know,
He was young at the time of filming,
super
wasn't he?
young.
Yeah.
And then he just goes sideways, you know? And so does that mean that what we filmed wasn't real? Of course not, you
Right.
know? So that's how I've and I also realized like over 20 years, people are going to make stupid decisions.
Right.
You know, I make stupid decisions all the time.
Yeah.
It's just like, we're all on a journey.
Yeah.
You know, let's just focus on what we need to focus on.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people get kind of tied up is they focus on the falling, or they focus on the bad decisions, or the bad behavior.
Yeah.
But not on like the point. Like, okay, that's horrible. Don't invite them to your church anymore.
Right.
But like, it doesn't negate what God has done in the past.
I think also too, like one of the things we've been seeing is this idea of like guilty by association, which really bothers me because I'm like, just because someone that I know and love did something stupid,
Right.
doesn't invalidate anything that I've done, you've done. It doesn't invalidate the entire movie because someone else those things just aren't
Right.
They're not true. It's not true. In fact, Jesus literally demonstrated the opposite. He went and was with the prostitutes. That didn't make him a sinner. He went and was with the tax collectors. That didn't make him a sinner. Like you could literally argue that the nature of Jesus is the opposite of guilty by association, you know? And yet now it's like, you don't even want to say, oh, I had this person on my podcast because then they fall and, oh Lord, like that might mean I'm evil or done something wrong. And that's not true.
No, I honestly think that a lot of the people, especially the ones who shout the loudest about this kind of stuff, because I can speak from experience. Now, I would never have been a person to get online and shout at somebody. But as soon as somebody screwed up, I was then able to like completely write them off, because at the end of the day, I wanted to write them off. Because if what they're saying is true, it's going to affect me. Right. And so I think a lot of the people who are really going after all this kind of stuff and are just shouting, I think that they just don't want it to be true. Wow. And so they find this nugget that they can grab onto. See, I told you, it's all false. It's all this, it's all that. Yeah. Because if it's true, then they're gonna have to make a decision. Yeah. And that was definitely my experience. I just did not want it to be true. So as soon as when I'd go to these conferences, somebody said something that I was like, that's not quite biblical. Yeah. You're out. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. If you could say that from the pulpit, like, no. Yeah. And so but then that got me off the hook. Right. So I think that's
some of what's
people,
going on.
I think that's an underlying thing.
Yeah. I'm really impressed with the way that you've walked this journey out, because to me, like, so I first met you, we don't know each other super, super well, but I first met you, gosh, in the green room at Bethel. It would have been like, you may not even remember this.
I was trying to remember.
You were speaking at a conference We were together. I can't.
Oh, was it the creative?
It was.
That's
I was
what
like, I couldn't even remember which one it was. It was the School of Creativity. And I was blown away by your authenticity at the table. And obviously now having tons of friends that know you really well and having watched this journey that you've continued on. So now 20 years of making these films, writing, how many books now?
5.
5 books. You are still the same person.
Yeah.
And you're still just on this journey of friendship with God. And to me, you're modeling something we're not seeing modeled well all the time. And that's just the authenticity of staying who you are and yet wanting to build this deep friendship with God and fulfill everything he's called you to do. And you've done that really well.
Well, thank you.
And I love that. Like you could, especially in this age of exposure, you could start a YouTube channel and bash all the things that you've seen and done.
Oh, I've seen the underbelly.
100%. And you're not doing that.
No.
Like, and I just, I really greatly appreciate like your heart posture towards all of these things.
Thank you.
So
it's funny. I had somebody ask me who was doing, who actually respect and like, who was doing one of these things where they're going after something that I had been a part of in the past, and they asked me to do it. I'm just like, I knew it was true. I'm like, this is going to sound really bad.
Yeah.
But like, hear what I'm saying? I'm like, this is not my brand. Like, I don't want it. Like, I'm just never going to, and so many people have asked me to make a movie about the fallen.
Sure.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times.
Right.
That's the number one request.
that's what sells right now.
And I'm just, why would I do that? Like, I have no desire to like go after like God's anointed, go after, even if they're like frauds. Like, I just have, I'm like, that's not who I am. Like, I'm not like a vindictive, mean person. Like, why would I do that? I'm like, I'd rather let's just keep showing the goodness of God.
Yeah.
You know, when we start focusing on the people and the church, well, that's not God. That's,
right.
You know, that's just fallenness.
Yeah. Newsflash. People are flawed.
Like, okay,
right. Yeah.
Okay. But it doesn't mean, you know, I think we mentioned this beforehand. I think a lot of people, you know, these deconstructionists or people who are leaving the church, it's like they never had a relationship with God. They had a relationship with the church.
Right.
And when the church fails them, then they'll, you know, depending on how strong they are, they'll go to another one and another one. And they eventually get to the point where like all church, is bad.
Yeah.
And so now I'm leaving the church. Well, okay. All church is bad.
Yeah.
All Christians are hypocrites.
Right.
And
yeah.
That's why we focus on Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, and so to me, it's just keep the thing, you know, and
it's so good.
That's how I just focus.
It's like that age-old adage that says, if you find a perfect church, don't go because you'll mess it up, you know? And that's true, right? I mean,
good.
There is this reality. It's a fun, if we had more time, we would dive into this conversation a lot, but it's a fun season in the church where, sure, there's things happening that we don't like, right? Like lots of scandal, lots of abuse, and those things need to be dealt with and taken care of. There's also lots of false accusation. There's lots of that, but there's also these beaming lights of God showing up in the most beautiful way. And more, I've just learned I would rather be fed with that. Like I'd rather be fed with the stories of what Jesus is doing than where man is failing.
Yeah.
Because you can find that. Turn on the news.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's plenty of it, you know? So, okay. We have to wrap up.
Yep.
Tell some people. So where can they get in touch with you? You've got 5 different books. You've got 5,000 movies that you've made. Where can they get all your stuff?
Everything flows through wpfilm.com.
Okay. Awesome.
Either that or Google my name. It's going to be the first thing that pops up.
Great.
Just ignore all the other stuff that you might see.
Okay. Yeah. Don't go watch the YouTube videos. Are you active on the socials?
Sort of.
Okay.
Ish,
yeah. Okay.
ish.
Cool. All right.
But my kid, not like my kids.
Yeah, of course.
I'm just like,
yeah.
But so the speaking thing is on there. Okay. All the books, all the movies. I think we just added. I just released a new project called Nightlight that I'm really excited about.
Come on.
That again, the Lord just kind of told me to make it. It's the first thing I've ever done that's completely just totally free.
Wow.
So I'm like, please get like people. You can donate a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
But it's basically I wanted to create a place where people can go. Essentially, like when they're having a bad day, or they're going through loss, or they're super stressed out, or they're just sick of the dark culture, and they can just go. And it's a bunch of stuff that I've created, and I'm going to keep adding to it as I can, fun things. But also, it's like I'm curating stuff from all over the internet. And I'm reaching out to different ministries and stuff too. So basically, it's a place where you could just go, and there's all these different categories, like. I mean, there's stuff for like humor, it's all just like humor. And then there's stuff that's all for kids, and there's some stuff that's just about miracles, and then there's amazing stories, near-death experiences. There's all these different categories that you can go depending on what you're kind of going through.
Wow.
Or if you just want to you want a good laugh, or you just need to have your spirit lifted. And so it's like, that's why it's called Nightlight. It's like a light, just a little light in the darkness.
That's awesome.
You can kind of just pop in and pop out whenever you want.
I love that.
So that's on the website as well. And then,
Tell us about this book.
This new book. I'm super excited about this.
Yeah.
So let me see, do I do this?
Yeah, we can do that.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So it's called Frail Children of Dust. And my grandfather wrote his memoirs, I mean, it was 30, 40 years ago. And but it was all about his time in World War II as a soldier and as a chaplain. And the story is incredible. He was a youth pastor, super naive, didn't want to have to kill anybody, gets drafted, ripped from his family, has to go through all these deprivations, in as a soldier overseas. Was one of the first people to infiltrate the concentration camps before, I didn't realize this, that before they let the press in, they actually cleaned up some of the nastier stuff. And so he saw stuff that's not in history books.
Wow.
But he's like this believer thrust into just the hell of war. Wow. And essentially trying to wrestle with what is the seeming silence of God. Because he's just seeing the deprivation of man.
Yeah.
And it's like, God, where are you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just his struggles to hold on to his faith through all this stuff. So he wrote it, and so it was the thing he was most proud of in his life. If you met him in the latter years of his life, you would not be able to not hear about this. Everybody he met, he talked to him. But he wasn't a great writer. Some of his stuff is absolutely beautiful, but then there's just like an entire paragraph of run-on sentences. It's just some of it's unreadable.
Yeah.
And so I spent the last 3 years going through this thing and just a really hardcore edit. Like I basically rewrote every single word in here, cut out all the fluff, got to the heart of the story, updated the language. And so, it took me 3 years to do it.
Wow.
But my grandpa, I had such a good relationship when I was growing up. But
wow.
So just released it, Frail Children of Dust. You can get it on Amazon. It's I'm super excited about it.
Do you realize that this is, to some degree, you and him did the same thing? Went into the darkest of dark places looking for Jesus. And he just did it in this form, and you did it in a different one.
And he went very unwillingly, though.
Agreed. As many did. Wow, this is amazing. Yeah, Darren, thanks so much for joining me today. We got to hang out more. I mean, yes. we must only live 15 minutes apart from each other, but I'm super excited. I love what you're doing with the Journey Through the Miraculous. I just think that's incredible. So listen, if you're a pastor, a leader of a ministry, and you're watching this, and this is something that that the people that you lead could benefit from, if there's questions, if they're struggling within those things, I want to encourage you, invite Darren, have him come out and do this 90-minute journey. And I think people need to know that they're not alone in their questions, that they're not alone in some of these struggles. And so what a beautiful thing that you can do for the people that you lead by having Darren come out and do this. And also, he's actually just really fun and funny. So if you get him around, you're going to have a blast. You're going to have a great time. We love you guys. Thank you for joining us at the table with Jess. You can like this video, share it, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. We will continue to release inspiring interviews to hopefully just get you to go deeper in your faith with God every single week right on this channel. We love you guys. We'll see you soon.